Hello, my name is Justin Trillinger, and I'm a world learning TESOL trainer and trainer of trainers here in Quito, Ecuador, where I'm working on the EIL Ecuador's Best Practices in TESOL course, which some of your colleagues, as I'm sure you know, have recently participated in. I would be visiting you now in your schools, but as it happens, I'm not able to do that due to the circumstance that you all know. So I am recording this here in my study in Quito, Ecuador. I wish I would rather be, honestly, visiting you in your schools, but that isn't possible right now, so we will try to go over what our content for the presentation is from Quito here. Now, one of the central points of our best practices in TESOL course that we're doing in Quito is the distinction between a more traditional form of teaching, where the teacher is at the center of activities, and another style, which we're going to call learner-centered teaching, where the student is really at the center of all the activities. Now, it seems very obvious, but if we think about playing football or playing the guitar, it becomes very obvious that if I want to improve my skill, I have to practice. And the same is true for English students. You can see here a number of references to studies in this area, but the simplest way it can be summed up is with the quote from the De Keyser study, that the acquisition of second language skills requires large amounts of practice, as is the case with any other kind of skill. But in a traditional classroom where the teacher is in the front and the students raise their hands to answer questions, how many minutes of practice does each student really get? Not very many, especially as is the case if I have 40 or 45 students in the same classroom and the class period is only 40 minutes. Maximum, that's less than 1 minute per student. But if we rearrange the classroom so that students start working in groups, working in pairs, working in projects, talking to each other, how many minutes of practice does each student get now? Obviously, it can be quite a lot more. In this classroom, you can see the teacher, that's me, is in the front, but the students are still arranged into groups where they can work easily in smaller activities, talking and interacting with each other. How many minutes of practice does each student get then? So to review, in learner-centered teaching, teachers are focused on what and how the students are learning. Learning is an active, dynamic process, and it occurs more effectively when students are actively involved rather than passively receiving information. It may surprise you to know that this information is from the Ministry of Education of Ecuador, as you can see in the footnote there, that this is really not a new idea, but it can be difficult to implement. So as I finish this video, that is the question that I want to leave you with. We know that students need to practice. I know you all know that. And yet it's very difficult to do. So what do you think are the biggest challenges in getting students to actually practice English in class? And that's a question you could call a friend and discuss. And I hope you'll also leave a comment here on our website letting us know what you're thinking. What are the biggest challenges in getting your students to practice English?